Okay, so yeah, welcome everyone to this live virtual webinar on how to boost your immune system. It's hosted by the drugstore, and it is featuring me, Julie, and then Sophie McLaren. We're really excited to talk you through this presentation on how to boost your immune system. So to get started, I will just introduce myself for the people who don't know me. I'm a medical doctor and I'm educated from Copenhagen University. I have been working as a traditional doctor with orthopedic surgery and as a GP. And since I've also specialized in mental health and stress management. I have worked the recent years in the cannabis industry, and this was where I met the drugstore and I became their scientific advisor. So I've been working closely with them to help increase awareness about holistic health. And now with this current situation, we quickly decided to launch these webinars to help support physical and mental health. I have also founded a online educational platform which is writing about cannabis and health and wellness, where I have an incredible team of writers writing for us. I'm based in the UK, but at the minute I'm actually calling you out of Sweden, where I have a farm from where I run mindfulness, yoga, stress reduction retreats. So it's quite nice up here at the moment. And then I also work in a clinic in Denmark where I prescribe medicinal cannabis. So that was me, and I'll give the word to Sophie.
Okay, thank you, Julie. So Sophie McLaren, I'm originally American and half British. Grew up back and forth. That's not relevant to the presentation, but just so that you don't spend the whole time trying to work out my accent and if I'm Canadian or Irish or something. I'm based at Oxford. I work on human flourishing and understanding how we as human beings and as individuals in any given context live our best lives. And I specialize particularly in well-being in the workplace, mindfulness and good leadership in the public and private sectors. I direct a couple of companies. One is called Estia Wellspace. It's here in Oxford, a wellness center. And then I'm the co-director of Awareness in the UK, which is a German-based consulting firm. We work on mindful leadership in the workplace. And we work with companies and governments around the world on implementing kind of healthy workplace practices and good leadership based on insights from neuroscience and mindfulness. I have a children's book coming out this summer, which is mindfulness practices for parents and children to do together at bedtime, so they both have a good night's sleep. And in general, I work with some of the companies that you can see on the screen here, and really just try to help human beings in any context understand a little bit about how they function, particularly from insights from neuroscience and other disciplines, so that they can understand in their unique circumstances how they function at their best, how they really flourish. So of course, now we're at an interesting moment in the world in that we have this crisis with the coronavirus. So it's a particularly interesting time to see, okay, how can we all function at our best in this particularly challenging circumstance? And I think Julie has some really great insights there to start us off in looking at our immune system and how that functions.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie, for that introduction. Now, after introducing the two of us, I will introduce the main character of today's webinar. It's the immune system, because there obviously now, it being a time with lots of uncertainty and a virus which we have no treatment and no vaccine for yet, it's obviously really important to understand how we take care of our immune system. And The immune system is our body's natural. Oh, there's someone asking a question. Let's just see. Can you read? Oh.
Okay. That's all right.
From Julie.
Don't worry, I think it's just in some people's box, it looks like we're both called Julie.
Okay.
It's confusing, but I'm Sophie and this is Julie, so no one's confused.
Okay, let's go back to the immune system. Don't worry about the names, it's just names. Just listen to what we say. And so the immune system is a part of our body's natural defense system. And it's actually a very complicated system, which is trained all the time, all of our life, from we are born, where we only have our mother's immune system and our basic innate immune system consisting of the surface area of our skin, which keeps out pathogens, which can be virus or bacteria or fungi. The things that make up our immune system is a whole bunch of different cells. This becomes very complicated, so I'm not going to bore you with that. But then they produce a lot of molecules, antibodies. There are tissues in our body, mainly the bone marrow, and our spleen, and they are all involved with the immune system and function. Then, as I said, the natural barriers. Let's see, there's another question.
Yes, just a question if they can screenshot. I'll take all the questions while you're presenting.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to take screenshots. So our first line of defense is our natural barriers. And that's our skin, and then obviously our mucous membranes in our nose, in our respiratory system, in the gut lining. And these keep out pathogens, and that's why you want to keep your skin healthy. Make sure to really keep it moist so it doesn't have cracks and little wounds. Then we come to our cellular immune systems. And the first one is the innate immune system. This is non-specific. That means that this will attack any foreign invader. And this can be bacteria, or in the case of a virus. And it will try to basically eat it up so that it can't really multiply within the body. So this is our second line of defense. And then the third and the very sophisticated immune system, which is, it's not even all species that has this adaptive immune system. The adaptive immune system is responsible for producing antibodies and making us immune to diseases that we already had, or at least making us able to respond really quickly. So this is, of course, what we are hoping will happen eventually now with the corona, that once we have been infected, we will have this immunity that our body can recognize it again and react quickly to combat the virus. And this is also, as well, the basic of vaccines. This was a very quick introduction to the immune system. We will, if you have very urgent questions, you can ask them, otherwise we'll take them at the end. There are certain things that can weaken our immune system. Two of the big ones that we are going to talk a little bit more about today is a lack of sleep and chronic stress. Both of them work together in a sort of like feeding into each other, but sleep, if you sleep less than 6 hours, it's been shown that a certain type of immune cells called natural killer cells is decreasing significantly, 30% almost, with just one night of less than 6 hours. So it's quite important to focus on those factors, stress and sleep, because these are actually things that you can do something about. Then we have more sort of chronic lifestyle diseases as cardiovascular disease, hypertension, diabetes, and pulmonary disease, even certain immune compromising disorders and HIV and kidney disease. And this is, of course, a group of people that the government has now asked to stay indoor. These are the very vulnerable people that we all have to protect by taking the right actions. Another thing that weakens our immune system is age. So as you can see, you can do a lot about the top ones, the lack of sleep and chronic stress, and this is what we're going to focus on today. Of course, we are not going to go in and talk that much about chronic lifestyle diseases right now. Okay, let me explain you what happens when we're stressed and why it has a big effect on our immune system. First, let me explain what is a stress response. And a stress response happens when there is a perceived threat of your existence or organism. And this can be either from a bill that can't be paid, or it can be from you being outside in the forest running away from a bear. This is really like the same kind of stress response that the body will react with. And it consists of these physical, mental and emotional and behavioral reactions. This is quite a complex reaction that happens, but to simplify it, where the physical stress response is involving the release of different hormones. And you probably have all heard about adrenaline and cortisol, and these are the main stress hormones. And so when you are either facing a struggle financially or a big exam, you will have a high or raised level of adrenaline and cortisol. And this can be positive. It can help you perform better at a meeting or an exam, or it can be chronic, which will make it a bit more strenuous on your mental and physical states. So the main culprit here is cortisol, because cortisol is a hormone that basically breaks down the body. It is known to suppress the immune system, and this can of course be beneficial if you have to really perform well. You don't want to be like having an overreactive immune system if you have to run away from something, but it's definitely not great in the long run. It both suppresses the immune system and it disturbs sleep. So both of these factors will lead to an increased vulnerability towards infections and other other pathogens, both viral, bacteria, and fungi. So this is sort of like a very short description of the stress response. Then another part of the stress response is the activation of something called the sympathetic nervous system. This is activated by adrenaline, and what happens is that the body is made ready to either fight or flight. When the body is in this state, you can feel your heart will be racing. You might even sort of like feel the pulsation in your temples. You might get hot, sweaty palms. It will close down digestion, so you might feel constipated. You get like this narrow focus where you probably are feeling that things can be overwhelming. You might feel that you can't live up to expectations, and in general there are many sort of like negative mental and emotional states associated with this response. Then on the other hand, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, and this is the opposite. This is when the body is in a restful state where you can focus on digestion, building up the body, taking care of your immune system. This is really essential for our health and well-being, and this is what Sophie will talk you through how mindfulness can help, because there are many scientific studies. I mean, to be honest, the past 30 years, we have gotten an incredible amount of great science that that has shown us how great mindfulness is to increase your well-being and your immune function. So Sophie will talk a bit about that next, right, Sophie?
Yes. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Julie's just taken us through the autonomic nervous system, right? And we've talked about these two branches, the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So there are a lot of ways that we could explain how mindfulness is beneficial here. We thought, just for the sake of time, we'll just focus on the practice of really consciously activating this rest and digest relaxation response that Julie was just telling us about. So essentially the idea here is that, when we understand how these things function, then we can understand how to work with them in a way that is beneficial to our immune system and our health in general. So this is relevant, of course, particularly right now, when we know that people with stronger immune systems are going to be better off in this crisis. We know that's something important to us, but it's also relevant, just in general. And this is something that I work with clients on, even when we're not in crisis. So what we're talking about is essentially exercising conscious influence over the autonomic nervous system. We'll just say the ANS. And so let's do a little experiment so that it's not just theoretical, but we have some kind of felt understanding of this. So if you just pause for a moment and just notice your breathing, just in the natural way that it is now. Okay. And now try consciously relaxing. So maybe you sit back a bit in your chair. Maybe the breaths become a little longer and deeper. So fully breathing, slowing down a bit. And then just observe what that feels like. Okay. And now try intentionally speeding up the breath. So maybe sitting up a bit and kind of faster, shallow breath. Okay, and then just pause. Notice, how did that feel? Okay, and if we were to go around now, when I do this in groups live, usually what we find is we've all had a very similar experience in terms of what we've observed with these different types of breathing. So particularly when we slow the breath down, very often people notice, as likely you have, that the heart rate slows down a little bit. That they feel a little bit more at ease, a little bit more kind of a mellowness. And that's more of an experience, a felt experience of parasympathetic nervous system. It's rest and digest, relaxation response, recovery mode for the body. And when we speed the breath up and we breathe fast and shallow, usually that feels a little bit stressful. And very often people notice that their body gets a little bit warmer, that their heart rate gets a bit faster. And it can feel a bit like being anxious or really stressed out. And that's perhaps an experience of more sympathetic nervous system activation. So how does mindfulness come into this? Well, first of all, if we are aware that we have these different modes of being, and if we're aware that we have some control over them when we notice them, then we can very intentionally become more conscious or mindful of what state we're in from moment to moment as we go throughout the day. Pausing, noticing the breath, noticing the sensations in the body. Am I in a moment of activation, of kind of stress or anxiety? Am I in a relaxation response? which especially in this time now would be a healthy place to spend quite a bit of time in. The first part is we become aware of it. Okay. And then the second part is that when we become conscious of that, and with a little bit of practice and when we have some tools, then we can consciously switch from one mode to the other, which we just did a little bit as a taster when we just worked very simply with our breathing. And we have a little quote at the bottom, Rick Hansen, because he's been really an amazing pioneer in this field. He's a neuropsychologist and has written some best-selling books. And he says, it's amazing but true. There's actually a neurological system in your body that you can trigger at will to help yourself feel less stressed, more peaceful, and more happy. When you feel more peaceful and more happy, that's an emotional indication that you're in a healthy state of being. It's an emotional indication that you're in a more of a relaxation response. So as well, paying attention to the emotions can help us to be conscious of where we are. And in that sense, as a side note, we can really trust happiness. And positive emotions are there also to guide us and tell us what to do more of and how to take care of ourselves. So if we could go to the next slide, thank you. So as well, this is something that we can understand and actually measure in the body. So I do some work with my clients on heart rate variability monitoring through a company called First Beat. And they have these very sensitive devices that people will wear for several days at a time, developed for athletes, and record the activities that they're doing throughout the day. And then they get a lovely chart like this, which shows them the red is the stress reaction. The red, we can say, is more of an activation, more sympathetic nervous system. Whereas the green is this relaxation response that Julie was just talking about, the parasympathetic nervous system. So most people, when we look at their data at the end of wearing this for several days, looks something like this. Most of the time in the day, a lot of red, occasionally a few little bits of green. And then what you can see here is this person went to bed at the end of that brown line, which is about 9 o'clock. But they haven't actually gone into a recovery period until 11 o'clock or close to midnight. And the recovery of that varies quite a bit. And by about 4 a.m., it's sort of dropping off. And although they then sleep until almost 8, they haven't actually been in a recovery period that whole time. So what you see then is by the end of the week, people's resources are a bit drained. Next slide, please, Julie.
Yeah.
Thank you. So in the workplace, in our lives, and particularly now, maintaining high performance, or we could also say taking good care of our immune system, actually requires relaxation. And here's a takeaway for you. Relaxation is a skill. And it's a skill that not many of us have strengthened today. It's a skill that we don't take a lot of time with. So if you look at this person's sleep, because in part they've taught themselves how to kind of switch modes, right? So they've intentionally cultivated some areas of the day where they have parasympathetic nervous system, even though this is their working day, right? It's not like they're taking a nap here. But they've worked with mindfulness practices so that they can understand a little bit how to switch modes. Then by the time they go to sleep, even before they go to bed, they've already entered this kind of recovery mode. And then by the end of the week, rather than being depleted, as you can see in the chart on the bottom, they're actually topped up because they've found a balance in terms of the moments in stress and the moments in recovery. And then on the next slide, we'll see, this is a colleague of mine who does also mindfulness. And as you can see, he's a great example of someone who starts their day with a mindfulness practice. is a way of very intentionally starting off with activating parasympathetic nervous system and this relaxation response, so that that becomes a foundation for his day and the way that he's engaging. And then throughout the day, although he's not meditating all day, right? He's having meetings, doing emails and all these things. Throughout the day, he has periods where he relaxes. And then if you look at the quality of his sleep, that's a really good solid bit of green without a huge amount of variance, right? So he's getting more than this minimum of 6 hours that Julie was just telling us about. So how do we do that? On the next slide, thank you. We have a few breathing techniques to teach you, which you can do at home. And we're just going to take a few minutes here. Why don't we take about 6 minutes? And we'll go through 3 different practices. And these are practices that we know from research help us to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, go into a state of rest and digest. They also have a lot of benefits for your brain, your emotions, and all of these things, which maybe we can get into in another webinar. But for now, let's just focus on this relaxation response. Okay. So to begin with, taking a comfortable upright posture. We'll have a little, I'll time this, we'll have a little bit of a ding to begin and a ding to end. And key in this practice is that we actually want to sit up a little bit. So not kind of leaning back because probably you'll fall asleep if we do that. But actually we're learning how we can still be engaged, but also with relaxation, okay? So that you can apply this in your day, not just when you're sort of lying down and taking a nap. Okay, feeling your feet on the ground. There will be a ding to begin. Okay, and then for this first practice, we're just going to do about a minute of really deep, full inhalations and exhalations. So inhaling through the nose, and then allow there to be a little bit of a gap, and then you exhale. Good, and then continuing in this way, inhaling, little gap, exhaling, little gap, inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. Okay, so that's already a minute. And as you're breathing in this way, just noticing how you feel. What happens to your body? What happens to your heart rate? Okay, and now we're going to do a couple of minutes of inhaling to a count of 4, pausing, and exhaling to a count of 4. And what we're going for here is a nice even length inhalation and exhalation. So together, beginning to inhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, exhale, 2, 3, 4. Little pause, and inhale, exhale, 2, 3, 4. Little pause, inhale, 3, 4, pause, and exhale, 2, 3, 4. And a couple more times, inhale, exhale, little pause, inhale, pause, and exhale. Good. And just continuing like that on your own for another 30 seconds or so. You can count in your head if it helps you. Okay, and then the third practice, continuing breathing just as you are. Now we're going to focus a bit more on the exhalation. So you might find just observing the breath now. So you inhale just naturally, and then a really full, slow exhale through your nose and maybe even slightly through your lips as well. What you might find is that you may notice that as you inhale, the heartbeat speeds up a little bit. And as you exhale, you might notice it slowing down a little bit. So as we do this, we're both working with the breath, essentially to soothe the nervous system. But we're also working with the mind, and we're soothing that too. Because very simply paying attention to the breath means that the mind has a place to rest for a bit. Just observing, inhaling and exhaling. And that can cultivate clarity of mind, can calm and soothe the mind as well. Just a few more seconds breathing here. Okay, so there we go. That's your 6 minutes of 3 breathing techniques to soothe the nervous system and calm and clear the mind. And then Julie, I'll hand it back over to you to talk about some more things that we can do to support the immune system. Oh, I think you're muted, Julie. I'll unmute you. Oh, I can't. You'll have to unmute yourself. Okay. There we go. No, muted again.
I'm just saying that I'm so relaxed from this that I don't know if I can go on with the slides. But I think this has been researched very well the recent years, like the mind-body connection and how it can help reduce the stress response. So next time you find yourself in the supermarket and you're about to grab that, you know, the 2 last bags of toilet paper, just don't do it. Breathe like Sophie told you, and you know, there's enough for everyone. Okay, so here comes some other tips. All these are backed by multiple scientific studies, especially like this slide here is supplements that are involved with maintaining immune function. I'll just go through them and you can also take a little picture of the slide. There are some recommended daily doses, and remember that all these vitamins and minerals, you can also get them through a varied diet. So on the next slide I will go through what kind of foods are great to eat in terms of maintaining a healthy immune system. But if we start with vitamin B6, vitamin B6 is a part of many reactions that happens in the immune system. So it can be a good idea to make sure that you get enough of this. I recommend usually taking it as a vitamin B complex, as the other vitamin B types are also serving very important functions related to brain function and sleep, for example. Then we have vitamin D, and vitamin D is probably one of the most important ones when it comes to immune function and staying healthy. It's been shown to decrease the amount of common colds that people have if they take a vitamin D supplement every day. And as most of you probably know, vitamin D comes mostly from being exposed to sunlight. And since many of us do not have like the possibility to be outside in the sun every day, and the sun is not even out every day, so in our parts of the world, it's really important to make sure that you take vitamin D supplements every day. Vitamin C you can easily get through your diet. The recommended dose is between 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams, and this you can also, in these times of COVID-19, I actually suggest that you just take a little bit extra, so you can take this as a water soluble tablet and make it part of your daily health routine. Then zinc is involved in making many of these immune cells and in many of the reactions, so that's another supplement that you can take. This is also easy to find in your diet if you eat lots of fish or meat, but if you are a vegetarian or vegan, you should probably take it as a supplement. Then I have magnesium on this list because magnesium is really great for muscle function and for brain function and for sleeping. And as we all want to focus on getting a good rest and good sleep to boost our immune system, this is on the list. You can take between 250 to 500 milligrams. Then we have another interesting one here, which is probiotics. And probiotics is basically live bacteria. They can be found in the diet through yogurts or kefir or sourdough. And what it's been shown to do is that it increases our mental health and can actually help to come. It has an association with depression and anxiety. So taking probiotics at this time can be quite a good thing to help boost the immune system as well. Yeah, that's this first slide. Then comes some more traditional advice, which is mostly this is tips and tricks that comes from more the Asian tradition, but where we are beginning to recognize the great benefits of many of these herbs, oils, and teas. And obviously, this is wisdom that have been known for thousands of years. So it's beginning to be more widely acknowledged that adaptogens like mushrooms can have a great effect on your immune system. Then especially honey has always been known to be antibacterial and great to support immune function, and especially the Manuka honey, which is the honey from New Zealand. But you can use normal honey as well. Then there are certain plants like echinacea, which you can take as drops or tablets, garlic, and I write capsules here because once you start cooking it, it's not as active anymore. Then there is elderberry syrup is also has been used for many years or thousands of years in traditional Chinese medicines. And the astragalus root is also part of the TMC. Then there are certain essential oils that has antiviral properties and that you can use in your home to create a nice atmosphere and help keep out bugs and vira. And Licorice tea is another thing that's especially great because it's been shown to promote respiratory health. So that one, licorice tea, along with chamomile and green tea. Green tea is a strong antioxidant that also can help us stay more healthy and alert. Okay, next slide. So we move on to what kind of foods are good. And here, like the basic takeaway is that eat food that's rich in vitamin C. These include lots of citrus, but actually the most nutritious for vitamin C is actually pepper fruit, so red pepper. Then there are, of course, fruits and vegetables in general that contains lots of anti-inflammatory and antioxidants, and food like berries and kale, artichokes, and then we have the superfoods that are very anti-inflammatory and can help increase the respiratory health, which is especially ginger, which it has been shown in many studies to be a great booster of immune function, garlic, curcumin, which is the active ingredients of turmeric, and then lemon and honey. I have a few tips on how you can use these ingredients in your daily life and your daily routine, and especially if you are in isolation, it's easy to order some frozen berries or vegetables. You can keep them in the freezer, and you can make smoothies with bananas that are also really full of great nutrition. Then to start the day off with like this immune booster of lemon, ginger, and honey tea. And then importantly, try to substitute like the unrefined sugar and sort of high carb snacks with something which is a bit more healthy, like dark chocolate, dried fruits, and things that are not going to be strenuous on your body. Oats are healthy and full of fibers, and they can be used for sort of overnight oats or porridge. And then, of course, as I said, plenty of garlic and onions. Certain things that I recommend you to stay away from during these times is things like smoking and vaping, because you want to keep your respiratory health in as good a state as possible. So right now is really a great time to quit smoking. And alcohol, keep it to smaller amounts. Even like a few glasses of alcohol can damage your immune system quite a lot, which everyone with a hangover or who's been out on a big bender knows, because it's very common that you have a little cold after a night out. So just think about that, and think about how we all want to stay healthy so we can help the weaker people in the community. As I said, refined sugars. And then another thing is try to read the news, which is from the official sort of bodies, like listen to what the government has to say, and don't indulge too much in sort of like social media, fake news, and don't be part of spreading too much unnecessary fear. We are all doing the best that we can to cope, and spreading fear and anxiety is really not very beneficial for anyone. Okay, so that was the food. The supplements, we went through some general advice, and then there are some really great exercises that can sort of help us activate the parasympathetic nervous system that Sophie was also talking about. And the breath work that Sophie presented is really incredibly useful, and it can be used anytime throughout the day. I recommend making a routine so that you make sure that you get it done, that you make sure that you really also do activate these beneficial pathways that can help keep you healthy. A good suggestion is to add breath work or meditation in the morning before you start your day. And then there are other beneficial exercises like shaking meditation. This is where you are sort of like standing and just with your knees bent, you start shaking a little bit. And you can do this from 5 to 10 minutes. And this has been shown in scientific studies to also help activate this rest and digest response and release excessive energy. And people usually come back and say that they feel very relieved after doing this exercise. So I can highly recommend it. When it comes to strenuous exercise, it's been shown that, for example, like running, like really strenuous exercise, like very intensive runs, or any kind of exercise where you afterwards feel really drained and your muscles are really sore, it's not the right time to do this kind of exercise, because it will leave your immune system a bit weaker in the time after. So I do recommend doing more mindful kinds of exercise, like going for long walks, going for jogs while we still can. Doing yoga. Yoga is order a yoga mat online and do yoga in your house. You can find so many great programs and free classes, or you can even sign up to Sophie's incredible wellness space, Estia Wellness, and they also have classes. And now I will, I think these are some of these are probably my top activities that I would recommend to do in these isolation times. And now I will let Sophie finish the session.
Thanks, Julie. So just to add to that, just the second part of the slide is the positive psychology. So, there's an aspect of working with the breath as a means of being a bit more relaxed. There's also an aspect of working with the mind. So, takeaway for you, the only thing in your entire life that you can control is what you pay attention to and how you pay attention to it. And those two things will fundamentally shape the experience of your life. So here's a moment where there's a lot that can take our minds in very anxious directions. It's important that we stay informed and up to date, that we know how to take care of ourselves and other people. It's also important, as Julie said, that we are very conscious about what we choose to pay attention to, essentially what information we choose to consume. We all have a negativity bias as human beings. It's another old survival mechanism. Similar to fight or flight, we're basically wired to look for what could go wrong in a situation, what is going wrong in a situation, any negative information. Neuroscientists say is that our brains are like Velcro for negative experiences. We kind of seek them out and then we hold on to them. And then if you're at home, right, just you and your mind, with watching the news all day, right, and knowing there's a lot going on, a lot of us are going to lose jobs or have financial challenges, and all of these things, right? Really important time to take care of your mind, because there's a lot of negative information that we can choose right now. So 2 ways to do that. One is to do that breathing practice that you just give the mind a break. If you're paying attention to the breath, you're not in your mind kind of having a blah, blah, blah about all the problems in the world, right? Important to have those breaks. The second is that you can choose to very consciously cultivate the positive, which means that you choose to pay attention as well to what's going well in life. As you can see here on the slide, things you feel appreciative of. Really great time to keep a gratefulness diary. The end of every day, writing down, here are 3 things I feel grateful for. You can do it on your own, you can do it with your family or your partner. Making sure that you take time to connect with people. We get a lot of positive emotions through human connection. So really important that we take care of that aspect, especially when we're isolated. At Estia, we're doing yoga classes where we also check in a little bit before and after. How's everyone doing? So that we can see each other's faces and have a little positive social contact. You can find ways of doing that. So let's do one practice now. We'll just take 2 minutes to do it together. And this is a practice, a mindfulness practice of intentionally noticing the positive. So again, taking a comfortable upright posture. Good, and then just take a few breaths. Nice long exhalations, just to settle the mind and the body a bit. Maybe relax the jaw a bit, an area that holds tension. See if you can even relax the tongue. And soften the eyes. Good. And then bringing your attention, your focus, to 3 things in your life at this moment that you feel appreciative of. Naming them for yourself. 3 things you feel appreciative of in your life right now. It can be little things. So you're healthy in this moment. You have a lovely home to be in. Maybe you're enjoying taking walks at the moment, or having a slightly slower pace of life. More opportunities for reflection. And see whatever it is for you. And taking a moment to explore that with your mind. It takes about 5 times as long for us to integrate positive experiences as it does negative experiences. So we just want to give them a little bit of time and space in our activity of the mind throughout the day. And as you do so, notice how you feel. Even contemplating these things, even imagining them, noticing them. You might notice a warmth in the heart. You might notice a drop in the shoulders, a little more relaxation in the body, maybe a smile on the face. Okay, and then coming back together. So those are a few different practices that you can do on your own. We highly recommend doing them every day. And we just also wanted to give you each a moment now to share the positivity. So if you wouldn't mind just typing into the chat box one thing you feel appreciative for in this moment. The weather, lovely. Virtual connections with friends. Thanks, Catherine. Selma, learning from and being connected to both of you virtually. Thank you, and likewise. It's so good to connect. Elaine says, my kids. Lovely. I'm appreciating going for more walks than I normally get to. Yeah, and someone else says nature. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And there are more coming in, but we also want to give you a moment to ask some questions.
Yeah.
So just a couple of minutes, if you have any questions for either of us about how you can take care of yourself during this time. Selma asks for the shaking meditation.
Yeah.
How long do you recommend, Julie?
So I usually say, like, you sort of start by just standing and connecting to the ground and really sort of like feeling the connection with the earth, closing your eyes. And then you just slowly start bouncing a little bit up and down. And then from here on, it's very intuitive, and you can kind of like move in any way that feels good. You can just keep on standing there and like experimenting with making the bounces and the shaking a little bit more powerful, or you can stay there in a low pace, or you can even like shake it all out. But usually I would say between 5 to 10 minutes is a good time. And if you want to keep on going, obviously you can keep on going, but it's a very nice break. I love to do this in like when I'm working, because I tend to build up a lot of energy, and sort of when I feel that my heats are a little bit, my cheeks are a little bit heated, then I usually take a little shaking meditation, and that then I'm back to more like a focused and relaxed energy. So, any other questions?
And Sam in Oxford says, thank you for your kindness and giving up your time for such valuable insights. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being part of this webinar. It's the first one that we do together. And yeah, hopefully we'll do more of that. Sophie, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you it was lovely to do this together as well.
And thank you for everyone who tuned in, and we wish you all a great day. And you will be able to find this webinar as a video on the drugstore under webinars. It will be up as soon as it's been edited. So yeah, and we will host you can find more interesting webinars in the coming weeks. So if you don't have any more questions, I think we'll sign off from here.
Just some thank yous coming in through the chat. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
So just to remind you, you've got tools in your toolbox now, right? You've got 3 different breathing practices. We recommend you do those. 10 minutes a day is a good amount, good to start in the morning. You've got the appreciation practice. You've got dietary recommendations, supplements, and the shaking practice. Am I missing anything here, Julie?
No, I think that my key takeaways from this is to just be really conscious of taking these breaks during the day, especially now that you're working from home, and incorporate some of those exercises that fits you. And then yeah, be extra conscious of how you spend your mental energy, so you cultivate positive emotions. And then of course you can go back and look at all these dietary tips for foods and supplements, but yeah, try to eat intuitively and healthy.
Thank you, and thank you everyone. Take care.
Bye bye.